Liberty. Ionescu, truth. Jonquel Jones with a tough bucket.
Stewie, little shoulder shake. Oh, what a shot!
Phoenix with the move down the lane. Cloud into the paint. Reverses it in. The New York Liberty are WNBA champions.
Hey Libs fans, and welcome back to Liberty FM. The Liberty came into last night's game with an 0-3 record against the Minnesota Lynx. They knew they needed this win and had to leave it all on the floor. The Liberty dominated, never letting go of their lead the entire game. The Liberty truly played their brand of basketball and brought home the win by a score of 85-75. François, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. And finally, we put an end to this nonsense. Because, we were tired of facing Minnesota and keep losing those games. Those guys feel so comfortable that they could call us punks. And we had to stop that. And I think that what we had noticed, especially in that last road trip, with the games against the Sparks, the Aces, and the Minnesota Lynx, was the fact that, yes, on offense, we have no problem scoring, but it was mostly the intensity on defense, the efforts, just simply boxing out and just be aggressive and make each game count like it's a final. I think we expected that as fans, from the New York Liberty against the Minnesota Lynx. And I think they definitely delivered. And I think maybe their pride was a little tested because sometimes I feel like they're playing too nice. And you could argue that Natasha Cloud said that they live rent-free in Minnesota Lynx heads because they do talk about us a lot. Mm-hmm. The fans keeps referring to, cheating in the final. Excuse me, but nobody forced you to not score a single basket during overtime. Let's not go back to game 4 where there was a lot of decisions that didn't go our way. That could have given us the game and we would have wrapped up this series in Minnesota. So I think that there's been a lot of talk. I think that the Minnesota Lynx definitely used that to fuel them against us. Mm-hmm. And I think it was time for the New York Liberty to respond and really treat this game as a final. And it definitely felt like that in this game. The crowd was pumped up, but the effort was there from the first second. You saw Leonie Fibish guarding Courtney Williams full court on the first play. That showed to me that they really wanted it. And now we demand from the New York Liberty that kind of effort for the remaining 9 games. What did you make of New York Liberty's effort, especially in that first quarter that kind of set the tone?
This is the team we need to see for the rest of the season and going into the playoffs. This is the team that when you play this brand of basketball, there's a high probability you're going to get the win because they played for each other. They were all aggressive. Yeah, this game, basketball is a game of runs, but this is a rivalry. This is truly a rivalry. And with whatever said on social media and, all of that, I feel like they might have taken some of that as fuel, especially maybe with the remarks that Courtney Williams had about the team. Mm-hmm. But again, you use that and push just to show that, hey, we're not just some nice girls from New York just playing our little simple basketball game. No, you're tough women out there, tough players that are going to really show you what Liberty basketball is all about. And I think we saw, maybe they played a little mad, I don't know, but either way, it was great because I think the Liberty showed that they want this. They're not just going to lay down and let another team run over them. So I think this was a good statement win for them, but hopefully this will also catapult them into these next remaining 9 games and they can show the other teams who they are, because I think there's some other teams, they got to get their lick back. So, they definitely got to get their licks back, and against like Seattle, Phoenix, I would say even LA. They did beat LA the last time, but they need to stamp that home for some of these teams out there, and also not lose sight of some of the bottom teams, because the bottom teams are still aggressive, whether they're in the playoffs or not. They're going to play their heart out, and I think they have to keep this mindset for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, I think definitely the mindset is the key right here, because when you look back at the game that New York lost in Minnesota 86-80, what jumped out, quite obviously when you're looking at the stats is the discrepancy in terms of free throw. Let me look at this stat right here. 33 free throws attempted for the Minnesota Lynx versus 8 free throws for New York in that game. Despite the fact that New York had scored more points in the paint, they had scored 34 points to 30 in the paint in that game in Minnesota. So what is it? Is it the ref that are just like too blind to see? I mean, quite a few times in key moments, Sab got fouled when she went to the basket. Natasha Cloud got fouled. JJ got fouled a few times. So is it that New York is playing too nice and not being aggressive enough, even though they're attacking the basket? Or is it just the ref? I think it's a combination of both. And when you look at the game last night against the Minnesota Lynx, you saw how intentional New York was. They were the aggressor. They didn't want to play nice. You saw, I think what impressed me the most was definitely Phoebish and Natasha Cloud on defense against Courtney Williams and Kayla McBride. I think that they kind of switched. It was more Phoebish on Courtney Williams, whereas in previous games it was Natasha Cloud. And even though Natasha Cloud did a great job against her, you realize that Courtney Williams, especially in the last game against in Minnesota, she was balling. And I think that probably Phoebish on Courtney Williams was probably better because she's taller, she has the length.
She has the length.
She's got the physicality, so she could cause problems. And I think they did a great job. You saw Courtney Williams getting pressed full court, so sometimes she had to give the ball much quicker and couldn't set up those pick and rolls like she did over and over again in previous games. And I think that for me, I felt like with Minnesota missing Fee, that they were going to really suffer. But it turned out that Courtney Williams has stepped up big time. And so now she's got the ball on her hand more and taking more shots. So now you have to figure out a new plan against that team without Fee. And I think that the New York Liberty did a great job. I think the other thing that drove me crazy in previous game against Minnesota was the fact that Kayla McBride had so many shots and open shots. Now, yes, you could argue that Minnesota set great screens for her, but there were a couple of times, quite a few times actually, where she was wide open. And I think that free in the end of the last game in Minnesota, that really killed us, where she was way beyond the line, but unguarded. It's like, I don't know if there was like a miscommunication in the switch.
I think they messed up in the switch, and it happened in the first minute of last night's game as well, where Sabrina just left her. And I know there was a switch, but JJ couldn't get to her in time, and she made that three. It was her only three of the game. But, you know, again, I think when they switch, communication when you're doing that, especially on McBride or Courtney, like, these are sharpshooters. Like, they're going to make their shots 90% of the time. It's pure luck if they miss. They may have an off game here or there, but it's not, that's a rarity. And so, you know, she made that first three, and then I think they really stuck to her like glue the rest of the night, whether it was Natasha Cloud or even Sabrina Ionescu. I want to give Sabrina her flowers too. She did much better on defense. We know Sabrina is working on her defense. We know she's not the greatest defender, but she did do enough to disrupt. And even towards the end of the game where you saw her take the ball from Bridget Carlton.
That was one of my favorite
plays. It's just, you saw how much Sabrina wanted this. And I'm sure they all saw the comments, and, you know, they see a lot of things and they have to put it out like noise, but they use that fuel. And I think even with Sabrina and probably even how she was feeling tonight, I think she did a great job, because being at the game and seeing her, she looked a little, I don't know if she wasn't feeling well or if she was kind of nauseous or whatever, but I know they took out that trash can near her and I was like, oh no, she might be a little sick. But she came back out towards the end and she was aggressive, and she did everything she could to make sure her team won.
Yeah, I think actually Natasha Cloud after the game confirmed that her and Sab were sick, and I think Sab was kind of throwing up at halftime. We did see, I think it was fourth quarter, where she was on the bench for quite some time. Even though she had been on the court for just a few minutes, Sandy subbed her pretty quickly, and you were like, oh snap, what's going on? And you did notice from the bench that she was probably sick. Thank goodness though that she didn't kept her on the bench for too long, because I think that unfortunately for Marine, we love Marine, but it was a tough matchup for her, especially against Natisha Eiderman, who did quite some damage coming off the bench. And I think her speed was really causing some problems for the New York Liberty.
It's so tough for this team, because I know Jalen Sherrod is unfortunately with the Lynx now. But when I saw Natisha Heidemann, I was like,
Yeah.
You need Sherrod. Like,
She would
Sherrod's
have-
not going to get you points, but she going to defend. And
Yeah.
she's going to be scrappy. And Atisha Heidemann is not going to get those shots off. Like, she may get a few, but she's not going to get by Sherrod that easily. Or at least she may provoke some fouls in there. But yeah, it was a tough one for Marine. This wasn't necessarily her game, especially when you bring in Atisha Heidemann, who's just so quick and just a great, excellent ball handler. And so, yeah, for her, it was just a tough night.
So when I saw Sab coming back, I think that's when the momentum shifted again, because even though obviously you have to kind of rotate to give some rest to players, I think at some point when she had Marine, Talbot, I can't remember like the full lineup, but you could clearly tell like they were struggling. So it's like, man, you need to bring Sab and Cloud back and JJ.
This is a game where you got to play
a tight rotation,
a very tight rotation. You can't have everybody out there. I mean, even for, I think both teams, they played 8 players only. Really, for New York, you just needed to play 7 because I think, this was not the game for Marine or for Talbot. They're going to have to probably work on that because coming into the rest of the season and playoffs, you are going to need some of your bench players and they have to step up, and defense is going to be key. And it just depends on the team. But for Minnesota, it's a tougher task. I mean, they are the number 1 team in the league. So, and that is for good reason. So they're quick, they're really effective on the ball. And so you have to keep pushing your defensive schemes and really push hard to stop them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when Nyara Sabali and Easy Harrison are coming back, that's definitely going to help and have a deeper rotation, because some of the players right now, I don't think that they would have expected to have such a big role under different circumstances. So hopefully when we get everybody back, that will help. But to go back on Sab though, and a leadership role, I think that, as you said, she's not the greatest defender in the world. She has made tremendous progress, but I did see a dip in the last few weeks. And she was struggling a little bit at the beginning. Like, there were a couple of times where we got frustrated. McBride was open. But I think as the game went on, she definitely amped up her intensity. Mm-hmm. And when you look at McBride, she barely existed in this game. 2 for 9 overall, 1 for 6 from free. So you would definitely live with that, because in previous games, she did so much damage at the 3-point line. So if you have McBride under 10 points, she has only 6 points in this game. That's definitely a huge win. And as you said, like, for me, even bigger than that 4-point play at the end of the game, that defensive stop against Bridget Carton, for me, was the best moment of the game and got the crowd really going. And I think when Sab put that kind of effort, sky's the limit for the Liberty. But I think, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I think when everyone puts in the effort and everyone stays locked in, you're going to get this win. And I think the Liberty have to remind themselves of that constantly. And they need to be reminded of that. Like, when you all lock in, especially your starters, when all 5, you'll have some mistakes. That's just part of the game. Teams are going to have their schemes and some will be successful, some won't. But for the Liberty, you have to take the punches and roll with it. You have to be able to absorb it and punch right back. You can't let another team begin to roll over you. And I think that's what they showed tonight. And I think also with the fact that Stewie will be coming back here soon, probably within the next couple of games, we'll see Stewie in action. And Stewie is probably going to take, I don't give her a whole lot of time, maybe maybe a game or 2 to get her back ready and playing at her full strength. But I think once you have her back added to the mix, this is a different team, and the full squad will be able to play together, because they haven't really played the full squad, or especially the core 3, and JJ, Sab, and Stewie. They haven't played that many games together this season due to injury, illness, and the like. So this will be a great time for them to get back together, get into their rhythm together, and hopefully they can make this big push into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, they only played 9 games together this season. If you're counting off the games where the players got injured, they only played 9 full games together. And I'll be curious to see what the stats are like. I think they probably won those 9 games that they played together. But yes, I think you definitely need all of them together to have a chance for a title, because when you look at the rest of the league, you got Vegas now that is on the 8-game winning streak and are coming back to their old level. Minnesota, that obviously is going to be tough. You got Atlanta and Phoenix. It's a tough league. So, the New York Liberty this time around, you might call them a super team and everything, but I think to win this year, they're going to need everybody at the best level and healthy to win it. But I think one of the key that we also took from that game is the fact that you're going to need JJ to score a lot of points.
Absolutely.
Every time JJ manages to score a lot of points against Minnesota, we tend to get the win. And I think that we saw it yesterday. I mean, an incredible game from the first play. From the first set that New York had, they gave the ball to JJ, and she had an incredible fadeaway against Alana Smith, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. 22 points, 10 rebounds for JJ, 7 for 10 from the field, 3 for 5 from free. And when JJ has a double-double, it's a guarantee win for the New York Liberty. They're 32-0. Since JJ has joined the New York Liberty. Incredible. And also another important stat, when she scores 20 points or above, the New York Liberty are 15-0. What did you make of JJ's performance yesterday? She was a true baller.
We've always said if you're feeding JJ, you're going to win. Like, if you play for her and she's getting you those points and getting the rebounds, high probability, like 98% chance you're going to win. And so far, right now, I think it's 100% because they haven't lost yet when she gets a double-double or when she scores over 20 points. So JJ is key, just like she was last year into the playoffs, and hence she was our MVP of the finals and through the playoffs. You gotta play for her. And I think it's important that the Liberty continue to play for their bigs. JJ in particular, but I do think with JJ and Emma on the floor, and then eventually Stewie, that you may or may not have all three on the floor. That may not work, just with speed and things like that. It might. I could see it happening. But when you play for them and you get in their wheelhouse, no one can stop them. I mean, even for JJ and Emma, when you get in their wheelhouse, it's really difficult to stop them. JJ, they tend to double team her a bit more and she has to fight a little harder. Emma, when you get Emma in her wheelhouse, she has the height, she has the length. You're not, and she keeps it simple. Yeah. She just goes up for her shot. She's not looking to do anything fancy. She makes her buckets and she keeps it moving. And so I think this is a team that if you can play for your bigs, it will space the floor. It will open it up. You don't have to force threes. JJ is excellent, obviously from the three ball as well. But again, you play for them. Sky's the limit. Yeah, sky's the limit. And I still feel like they haven't fully gelled just yet with Emma Misaman on offense, because there are times where I feel like they could play more for her and they kind of forget. And sometimes they do. They're more intentional, but they're still not giving her the ball in the best condition. So I still feel like once they kind of learn how to play more with Emma, that's going to be really deadly. And obviously with Stewie coming back, sky's the limit in terms of the options you have on offense. Yeah. But I think that, them having a practice in New York kind of helped. I'm sure that they must have done a lot of sets, try to play with Emma, and you could tell that they were gelling a bit better. And I think the other thing that was big was the communication on defense. They were much better. There was still some lapses, but much better. And I think, my favorite moment, my favorite quote from the game was when Jackie Power asked Leonie Fibish what was her best moment from the game. And she couldn't single out one key moment. Before it was boxing out. Because she had mentioned before the game how frustrating it has been, to kind of fight out against bigs. And then you see a tiny guard coming from the side and just grabbing the rebound unchecked. And I think that's the thing, one of the biggest issues this season. Not only the rotation on defense, but the boxing out. Being more intentional to kind of look at the person you're guarding, blocking them out so that you get the rebound. And I think that the Liberty did a much better job yesterday. And I think Fibish was probably happy to, being boxing out and have someone that grabbed the ball. Even though I do feel sometimes that she's boxing out and sometimes she kind of just
let the ball kind of falling down, and sometimes she could just be more intentional in grabbing it.
Mm-hmm.
But she obviously is counting on other players because it's hard to box out someone much bigger than you. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, they did a much better job with boxing out yesterday. I will say that. I think in previous games, what we've seen is, everyone's just looking at the basketball and hoping that it will land in your lap and you don't have to put your hands up. And it's frustrating to see because you're like, just put your hands up.
Yeah.
Like, you see it, put your hands up to get it. Don't wait for it to hit the ground. Like, at this point, the guards are going to come in or another big because you're watching the ball. You're not watching the person you need to box out on. And so they did a much better job, and they have to continue that. And they just have to play better, communicate better. I think last night you saw that all of that sort of clicked and came together. Yeah, you're going to have some lapses. It happens throughout a game. But for the most part, I think they did an excellent job of doing the little thing, because sometimes that's what the Liberty will suffer with, is not doing the little things. You don't box out, so that team gets the rebound, or not communicating on switches, just doing the little things that you know to do. You've practiced this over and over again, and then in a game, you get stretched out, you're not communicating, and I think the Liberty locked in last night.
Yeah, definitely. Before I look into the schedule of the 9 remaining games for the Liberty this season, I wanted to ask you, what was your favorite moment from last night? Because there were quite a few, but what was your favorite one?
I have to say from it was probably the beginning and the end. The beginning where Sabrina didn't get that foul call. She was going up, and I think Bridget Carlton definitely fouled her, and she didn't get the call. And then she came back second time, and she got the bucket.
Yeah.
She didn't get a foul call, but she kind of shouted at Bridget Carlton. And from that moment, I knew, I was like, it's on tonight. Like, Sabrina, from that moment, I was like, yeah, she's playing mad, and I love it. And then at the end too, where she really defended. And this is at the end where Sabrina is coming off of, we know Sabrina's not feeling well. At this point in the game, we know like something's up with Sabrina. Like, she's not feeling well, she's nauseous, she's sick, something. And she gave it her all to get that ball from Bridget Carlton, and she defended her. She trapped her in that corner so well and did not give up. And I think those two were the moments of the game, and you could see how pumped up she was. The 4-point play was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
That's on the list.
I watched it so many times.
But I think overall, her defensive, that first play offensively, when she finally made that bucket and said something to Bridget Carlton, and then that defensive stop that she had on Bridget Carlton.
Yeah. I mean, for me, there were a couple of moments. First of all, Marine against Natisha Eiderman. I don't think a lot of people noticed.
I forgot about that.
That crossed that center like bloop, on the floor. I think nobody talks about it.
And in between JJ's legs.
Yeah, it was crazy. The other thing was Kennedy Burke against Atlanta Smith. That was a nice crossover. And she said after the game that it's something that she's working on a lot, her ball handling, because she knows that it could be important for her to have the ball in her hand, attacking the basket.
Yeah.
And we know that at times she tends to lose the ball a few times. So I'm glad to hear that that's something that she's working a lot on. And that crossover was nasty. Even the teammates after the game was like, did you talk about it? Did you talk about it? Like, yeah, they already asked me the question about it. So it was cool that, the team got pumped up about it. Obviously, the defensive stop from Sab and the 4-point play. I think for me, 2 moments stands. The first one is in the 4th quarter. So, I mean, if you're not at the Barclays, you probably wouldn't know, but now this year they implemented this. They had this partnership with Shake Shack. So basically, when the away team has free throws in the 4th quarter, they have to have a player that missed 2 free throws in a row for everybody in the stadium to have Shake Shack. So in the 4th quarter, you had Krundikova that had 2 free throws, and she missed them. And the crowd was insane, exploded.
It was so loud.
It was so
and intense
loud.
In there just for a Shake Shack.
Just for a Shake Shack.
I was cracking up, but then we missed the rest of the play because she missed it. But then they came back and made it 3, and you were like, "Oh no!" That
was the funniest part because I was like standing up, and everybody was like, like, whoa, like so loud. Even I'm sure I was like, Minnesota probably was wondering like, what the heck is going on? Like, did she just miss 2 free throws? Like, it's not such a big deal. Yeah. So everybody was happy. I was happy, but at the same time, I kept like looking at what was going on afterwards, and Minnesota got the rebound, and Natisha Eidelman got the free, and everybody was still like
cheering, but
cheering
not for
the
that.
Shake
They
Shack.
were just happy for
and
Shake
they didn't
Shack.
realize that in the meantime she scored free. So I was like, oh dang! Like, yes, we have the joy of having a Shake Shack today. So if you be prepared if you were at the game to receive the email for a free Shake Shack. But at the same time, right after they scored free, and people were not paying attention, and the game was like a 4-point game at this point. So that was really funny for me. And then the last moment is obviously the night from Sabrina at the end of the game. Yeah, she trash talk, and I think that's good. That's good for the league.
I mean,
that
Minnesota. Courtney.
They trash us every single chance they got.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for the league, good in general for this rivalry. That it's like, no, let's not play nice. Like, just have a little spice. Because they are our biggest rival, and they're still salty about what happened last year. So I think it's good. And even Courtney Williams commented on Instagram. She's like, "Oh, they got their leg back." So even her, I think she appreciates.
Like,
she noticed that, like, "Oh, okay, this getting a little spicy, and they got their groove going." So now the next time that they might face each other. We'll be in the playoff, hopefully in the final, or hopefully not, hopefully we could get in the final and not have to see them. But if you want to repeat, you have to face the best. But yeah, I think it's good to the league, for the league to have those spicy, moments.
I will want to also talk about Kennedy Burke. I think since she's coming back with the team, she's been a great spark as well.
Yeah.
I think she is one of the few on the team who is willing to cut to the basket.
Yeah.
She can really, it's easy for her. Her first step is very quick actually, and she can lose her defender. There were a couple of plays where she got to the basket uncontested. And I think, she dropped Atlanta Smith on that great crossover. And she would have made the basket if Courtney didn't push her in the back.
Yeah, but she made the 2 free throws.
She made her 2 free throws, but I wish she would have made that shot. But she was fouled anyway. But I think KB is just a great addition, and just seeing her rise, to the occasion, especially as we get closer and closer to playoffs, like you can see the areas that she's working on, especially with ball handling. I think last night she did a much better job. There are times where, in the past, we've seen her bring the ball up or get the ball in her hand, and if she dribbles a bit too much, high probability she's going to lose the ball.
Yes.
So I think this time we saw where she's working on it, and she was so much better at ball handling and just cutting, slashing to the basket. She's one of those players that you don't know what to expect sometimes. And I think that's great for the Liberty. Teams will play, and set their schemes for Sav and JJ and Stewie and others. But I don't think they set as many for KB because you don't know always what to expect with her. And I think that's just a great thing. And I think as the remaining 9 games, she's going to be crucial as well. Coming from the bench, she's going to be a crucial part for this team.
Yeah, definitely. So as you said, 9 games left. Now, the New York Liberty are back in the second spot in the standings after Atlanta losing against the Las Vegas Aces. But it's very tight, though. Mm-hmm. If you look at the standings between New York, Atlanta, Vegas, Phoenix, it's very tight. So you dropping a game, that could completely change your spot in the standings. So those 9 games have to be treated like each playoff game. Yeah. And I wouldn't expect any less than 9 wins for the New York Liberty moving forward. And I think it would be good for them to just have that mentality to prepare them for the playoff. You're going to have players coming back from injury. Hopefully Stewie could be ready for the 23rd against Atlanta. That's the big game coming up soon. But when you look at the schedule, they have Chicago, Atlanta, Connecticut, Washington, Phoenix, Golden State, Seattle, Washington again, and Chicago again. More than doable games. I think obviously the 3 games that stand out is Atlanta, Phoenix, and Seattle, teams that have been them before. So you really hope that game moving forward, that Minnesota game yesterday, moving forward is the standards for the remaining of the season to keep that second spot.
Yeah, I would also put Golden State on that list. You know, they didn't win last night, but they are a team who, to me, can also just disrupt and cause some trouble. I think the Liberty have handled them well, but I also think, yeah, they're a young team and they're very hungry. You can't take your eye off the prize with teams like that because you may feel like, oh, we beat them. You know, you may get a little complacent. I think that's also a team you cannot be complacent with, despite, you know, they're having an incredible season and fighting to keep their playoff spot. You have to watch out for them as well. Yeah. And they have a great coach on their side. They have a arena full of fans that, you know, get behind them just as much as Liberty fans get behind their team. So I think that's also a team that you have to just be mindful of and keep the energy you had last night. Keep that same energy for the rest of the season, however far it goes. Liberty Bibbity, Liberty Basketball. So thank you so much, guys, for listening to our podcast. We'll try to cover this weekend the 2 games against Chicago and Atlanta. But thank you so much for listening and for your support. And as we always say, Felicia, let's go Liberty!